Anthony, if he would be my, thank you. Yeah, there's the disclaimer. We're going to record our meeting. So first, all welcome to the January W7PRA Peak Radio Association meeting. I'm Paul N0 VLR, chair of the board. And as is our tradition, I'd like to start with a round of introductions. I'll call you off as I see you on my screen. And I think we might have some, relatively new faces or whatnot, and we'll go from there. So, Steve.
I'm Steve, KW7F in Northwest Corvallis.
Okay, thank you. And I should have probably mentioned I'm in Lebanon. Over to you, Olin.
Okay, I'm Olin, WA7YXY, and I'm also in Northwest Corvallis.
All right, good. Ted's the sharp and snappy dresser.
I'm Ted Mitchell, W7RTM, and I'm in the suburbs of Philomath, actually out of the county of Philomath.
Okay. Anna.
I'm Annalise McDermott, NH6Z, and I am in metropolitan Lebanon.
Okay. Great. And how about Paul, W7?
Paul Branchfield, W7PEB, between Winston and Roseburg. I'm the southern contingent.
All right, very good. And Brett, over to you.
I'm Brett Hamilton, KJ7 GPD, and I am in Tualatin. Maybe I'm the northernmost so far.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Over to Anthony.
Anthony, KE7OSN in rural Marion County outside of Almsville.
Okay. Mr. Larry.
Larry, I'm AF7NU in Northeast Corvallis.
Awesome. Scott, why don't you pick it up next?
Okay, I'm Scott, KF7GGN, and I'm all in Northwest Corvallis, very close to Steve there.
All right. Very good. Ron.
Yeah, Ron Post, AE4JL, and I'm up in Millersburg.
Ron's also going to be our presenter coming up shortly. So thank you, Ron. And Tyler.
Tyler, WB7DD, and I'm in Southeast Corvallis.
All right, very good. Okay, there is one other person that I thought would be here by now, but he might be just running a little bit late. That would be Chris, AB7BS. He said he was going to join us tonight, unless there was a communication outage, which he had to take care of. So, so if he's not here, he sends his regards, but he did try to come tonight. So we'll see what happens. Oh, and just in time, Mr. Andy, you were just at the bottom of the list for introductions. You maybe didn't hear me. Andy, just go ahead and introduce yourself to the crowd here.
He doesn't hear you.
I don't think he's got his audio on yet. Wave your hand if you can hear me, Andy.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. No, we were just finishing up introductions. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Andy Prentice, W7AAU treasurer.
All right. Thanks. Thanks very much, everybody. And let's see. I'd like to start off with the educational topic tonight, and then we'll go into the business meeting. So, Ron, are you able to present at this time?
Well, we'll see if I can figure out. I've never done this on
Yeah, there
Zoom,
should be a share screen down at the bottom middle. It's usually green. If you have it,
yeah, give me
it
just
might
a
be
second.
different on the website than the app.
Give me just a second here.
Yep.
We had something open twice.
Okay, looking good.
Looking promising, and let me switch to still looking even better, hopefully.
Oh, that looks great.
Okay, so yeah, Paul asked me to talk about some of my experiences with Park on the Air, lessons learned, what it is, information, and I have a great time doing it, so I'm really excited to present. One thing I will share is this TR3 up in the top left corner. That was very similar to my first rig. I started off in HF, had 3 tubes in it, a lot of dipping and peaking, and I learned a lot of good lessons there with that radio. So Parks on the Air, what is it? It's a site for, as they say here, international amateur radio operators that promote emergency awareness and communications. It's a lot like Field Day, and let me get something out of my way here. Whoops, didn't mean to jump so far. It's really something I've had a lot of fun with, and I started out just as a hunter. There's two different types of roles in Parks on the Air. There's hunters and activators. If you just want to hunt and work the stations, you don't even necessarily have to register. You can jump on there and hunt, but registration is free. And the nice thing, if you register, you can go out and see how you're doing, how many activators have tuned in to where you've managed to work, how many parks you've managed to work, and there's some other things. The hunter's objective is to contact as many parks around the world as possible. And the nice thing is they put all these on the website. Most of the time, the activators are on the website. You can look for the frequencies. You can try to play with your antenna, play with your system to pull them in, especially if they're international. Pretty much all modes, all bands are fair game. And it really is, I enjoy hunting. One of the things I do enjoy is I say over here to the right is working the DXers, Hungary, Spain. I've had a couple other people's, and it's interesting. I've had one guy from Hungary that's worked me multiple times, and he actually looks for me in the list when I'm working. And it's really kind of neat that somebody from Europe is seeking me out as a contact. So it's one of the things I've got. The nice thing about a hunter is you don't have to turn anything into POTA to get credit. It's all the activator's responsibility to do it. And don't let that scare you from being an activator. It just, it makes it easier. One of the nice things hunters can do for activators is to respot them. I'll give you a little bit more about this later on, what respotting is. But I know when I went over to southeastern Oregon, over in Steen Mountain, I had no internet connection. There was no way for me to log into the system and say, hey, I'm out here activating. But I actually had a hunter go on and activate me so then other people could see I was there working and they could search me out. So there are some nice things that hunters can do for the activators. The activator, they're the ones that go out and set up in a park, kind of like Field Day, and they're calling CQ POTA. Again, it can be any mode, any band. There's places you want to stay away from where there's nets and things like that, but you get a lot of flexibility. It is the activator's responsibility to turn in the log of all the contacts. The nice thing with the activators, there's a nice map I'll show you here in a few minutes, where you can see where all the parks are. Clear around the world, and the number's growing. So every year they're evaluating parks and trying to expand this list. The other nice thing about the website, there are some awards and some stats. And it's kind of neat to go around and see how well you've done. I think I'm up to like 37 states now that I've worked. So it's helping me with that. The other nice thing is I upload all my stuff to QRZ and to Logbooks of the World. So it helps with those contacts. One of the park things I really like best is you can pick what you enjoy, whether it's going to a location, going, a particular mode, particular power, a lot of QRP stations, a lot of low power stations I work. They're pretty patient, but sometimes I'm surprised that, 5 watts and I'm talking clear across the country, somebody's talking to me. But I'm giving them a 5.9 report. And I go out there to have fun. I think that's the big thing, whichever way you want to do it, whether you're working from home as a hunter or working in the park. A little bit about hunting. There's a spots page on Parks on the Air. And the spots page, you can filter down, and I kind of show the bottom right shows the what the spots page is. Up in the top left there's a filter. So if you want to pick a particular band in a particular mode, you can filter down and just see the ones you want. If you click on a particular individual, which is to the left of the main form, you see where you can go in and respot somebody. You can also look and see what their recent contacts are. So what part of the country have they been working? Just a handful of information there. Get information on the park. I think if you actually click on the park, it'll take you to that park and show you, okay, here's all the people who's worked from that park and information about it. So going to the web page is one way to do this, but you're also free, just as you're tuning around the band, and you can see if you can work them. There's nothing that says you have to go out to the website as a hunter. If you find them, feel free to jump in and make a contact. I know as an activator, I always appreciate it. I've had some great QSOs just from people jumping in because they were scanning around. So again, whatever you enjoy. Activators. So the activators, they get the fun of finding a park. What park do you want to do next? And I'm up to 10 parks now. There's Sarah Heimlich being one of my favorites here, where we had the summertime event. But I'm one of the things I'm trying to do is get a park 10 times. That's one of the first awards that you can get as an activator. So I'm trying to get up there and have fun with that. It's a lot like field day, where you can set up your gear, you can find a frequency, you start CQ Parks in the Air with whatever mode you're in. For exchange information, basically, it's your send strength, your receive signal send, QTH, provide your park numbers if you're in more than one park at the same time. Again, I mentioned earlier, a hunter can spot you, or you can spot yourself. And I'll get there's a plus sign. I'm gonna go back a page. This is down in the bottom, at a park now plus sign. If you click on that, you can spot yourself and let other people know you're there. When you're done, you can also come in here, just like spotting yourself. Instead of saying that you're a single sideband, you can just say your QRT. There's a nice little comment here to say, hey, if you put QRT in here, that lets everybody know you're done. And that's really, it's worked out well for me. What I hate is when I see somebody go QRT just as I was calling out for them. So, it's like, man, I wanted that one. I wanted that one. So I do upload POTA, and I'll get into this in a second. I think I use Hammer, but then after I upload it to QRZ, I use QRZ to upload it to logbooks of the world. It takes me less than 5 minutes. I log as I go, and it's really become quite easy. one of the fun things I do enjoy is the park to park. Now is you have to be an activator to do a park to park. But you don't have to get a minimum number of contacts to work a valid park to park. So to be an activator, they want you to work, I think it's 10 contacts. I never remember if it's 10 or 25, but you work, once you reach that threshold, you successfully activate the park when you turn it in. But even if you only work one as an activator, you still want to upload it so the hunter gets credit. So that is something important. The park to park, what's nice about that is both people get credit for that QSO. So both of you have to log in the contact information into your log, and both of you have to upload it. But it's kind of like getting 2 for 1, or sometimes 4 for 1. One of my contacts, I was working, it was actually at a point where he qualified to be in 4 parks at the same time. And interestingly enough, one of them was the Oregon National Historic Trail, the California National Historic Trail. He was physically located here at Fort Laramie National Historic Site. And it just so happened the Pony Express National Historic Trail went through there too. So he got to take credit for 4 parks at the same time. The most I've worked, I've come across somebody that had 6. And that was actually somewhere up near Chicago. And I had to look that up on the map. It's like, okay, how are you qualifying for 6 parks? As I kind of mentioned, the activators will typically give priority to park. You'll hear them out there go park to park instead of giving their call sign. The challenge I get is that there'll be 2 or 3 people calling park to park at the same time. And then if you don't give out your call sign, okay, which park to park are you talking about? The challenge I find with some of this, especially as I'm working as an activator, is I got to remember to go in and change my location in QRZ so that it uploads right and to the logbook and up to logbook of the world. So it is a little step that's easy to miss. The other thing, if you happen to be an activator and working park to park, and I've got it in red text kind of here in the middle, don't forget to log the correct frequency if you're hunting. I get so used to activating, and with the software, my frequency doesn't change, so it's easy. But when I'm hunting, the frequency is changing for every contact, and that really makes things a little bit of a challenge, because then I got to go back and remember, okay, what frequency was I on when I worked that person? A little bit more here on activation, how to find a park. There's actually a couple of methods to do it. And for qualifying parks, they're usually state or federally recognized park systems. Every year, some parks get submitted to POTA, and they go through and evaluate, yes, we add this one, no, we don't add it, or maybe it's taking one off if a park closes. But from the main page, you can, if you click on the map of entities, there's a POTA map. You can, for some reason, it puts me out in the middle of the Southern Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Africa when I open this up. But so I got to zoom out and get to the right part of the world. And then once you zoom into a particular level, you get the little yellow dots for where all the parks are that are active. Now, realize some of these yellow dots represent the whole forest system. So the Willamette National Forest. Well, there's only one little dot representing that. The rules are you just have to be within the park boundary. So there's some of these that are really a lot of space. And you have to usually go online and research the park and find, okay, where are the park boundaries? Because some of them are a little bit tricky. Once you click on the yellow dot, there's an option to get more info. You can go in and see that park, get information, longitude, latitude, who's worked it, who's hunted it, who's some of the most frequent hunters, who's the most frequent activators. So there's a lot of information you can get about the park by just going in and looking. Something else I've had fun playing with is it is also possible to go in, as I show here on the right, and get a list of parks in any particular state or country. It lets you drill down until you get to the group you want. And then you can sort by, I'd like to sort by the number of activations. So here, I realize it's probably hard to read for a lot of you, but it's the Oregon National Trail for Oregon comes up on top. And there's been 37,669 QSOs when I took this snapshot. It's quite a bit, it was just short of 800 activations. Now, the Oregon National Historic Trail actually is very long, and I think it's in 6 states, which is what it's showing here for location. So it's one of those things to realize when you see numbers that big that, okay, that there's a lot of people that can work that particular one. So a lot of options and a lot of fun of getting in and playing with the parks. I think Oregon is a little over 200 parks that are recognized in Oregon. And there's only one that, at least when I checked the other day, still had 0 activations. And I'm hoping by the end of the year that changes. The park reference, once you click on a park, and I picked on Cascadia Park here just outside of Sweet Home to the east of Sweet Home, up off of 20. That's a good secret little spot there for a campground in a park that isn't too far away. Beautiful little place. But you can see you got the park reference on here, the K-2821. And that's part of the information you give out for the QSO when you're an activator. It's in the United States, it's in Oregon, longitude, latitude. There's awards for at least late shift. I don't know if there's really an early shift award yet. So it tells you what time, if you're working those parks as a hunter or an activator, that there's a separate set of awards for kind of being in the off hours. How you get to the park, activation methods. Isn't an active park, so there's like I said, there's some parks that might close, and they at that point they would go inactive. Give me just a second there. And at least as the other day, I was activations down here in the bottom left. I was the last person to work it, and so far, it's never been worked twice by the same person. I had 49 QSOs when I was there, and I'm at the top of the list for that park right now. So it doesn't take a lot to get number 1 for a park. There's several people I had here that's hunted the park twice, and then it has the list of recent activations. Something else I want to mention here, up in the top, you see I got this yellow text. You can schedule and see if someone scheduled a park. So there's an activations tab up here. And if you click on that, you can go in, and there's another plus sign. You can click there and you can say, I'm going to go out and work this park next weekend. Excuse me. And you get the approximate hours, your approximate frequency. And it's just to let other activators or hunters know, hey, somebody plans to be at this park. So a little bit into best practices here. Have a paper log, have plenty of paper. You don't want to get through to the end of all your contacts and your computer crashes or something of that nature. Another recommendation is, especially with a paper log, is take a picture of it before you leave with your phone. Because if you lose that paper log for somehow, you have a backup. If you use only a computer, again, consider making a backup. If I'm at a park where I can connect through my phone to the internet, I go ahead right there and upload them, because I am using the Hammers logging software. There's a particular mode in there just for parks on the air It'll come up and tell you, hey, here's the park a person's at, here's their call sign and so on. It works pretty well. There's a couple tweaks I'd love to see, but it does well. The other thing about activators or hunters is you can have more than one activator or hunter at a park or hunting. And if you're in that situation as an activator, you just let the hunter know, hey, I've got another activator here. Can you stand by while we change operators? Now, each activator should keep their own log, and each activator should upload their own log. But again, I've worked, I think up to 4 activators is the most I've ever had for one park. And you get credit for each hunter there, or each QSO. One of the other things I want to talk about, if you're out doing POTA, and this happens to me every time, and it's at this point when I go out, it's likely with a decent antenna rig, band conditions and so on, that you will get pileups. And it's nothing to have 5 or 6 people calling for you. Some little tips to remember when you get to pileup. Don't feel you have to rush. You don't have to hurry to get to that first call. Give them a few seconds and write down as many calls. You know, if you wait 5 or 6 seconds, you can write down 3, 4, 5 call signs. And then when you do jump in, you recognize the second and the third one and so on, and ask them to stand by. Usually I can get at least the whole call sign or the suffix. I write them down on a piece of paper. And then I return to the first one. Now, I don't recognize the first one right off the bat, but I find that if I come back and recognize them, you know, at the end with their whole call sign, everybody else now knows where they're at in the queue. And they will very patiently wait. I confirm the information and move on. Again, I try not to rush it, and I probably do sometimes. But I get the information. I try to make sure I get that 73s out there, give the hunter a chance to say their 73s and then the last notes before I go on and recognize the next person. Now, sometimes the only thing I may have is, okay, the suffix ending in a K. It works. You go with what information you have. Don't feel rushed. Don't feel that overwhelmed by that when it happens, though. And it's great practice. I love listening to some of the people that handle it, and you can hear the ones that are working well versus some of the POTA stations where, okay, they're just totally missing, you know, struggling with the pileup. The other thing I want to mention is on the other end, especially if you don't have a pileup, it's okay to have a conversation with somebody if they do something of interest. I've worked Parks on the Air. I've also worked some of the special events with ships. I have worked one guy that was down in Hollywood dealing with some movie stars at the time. That was a very interesting conversation. A lot of the QRP rigs, on occasion you'll get a soda or somebody jumping in. Anything special like North Pole, Alaska. I always enjoy having a conversation when they're calling me from North Pole, Alaska. I've had 3 or 4 from up there. You know, if you are in a little bit of a pile up, but you want to come back to them, you know, ask them. You're the one controlling the frequency. The other thing I'll mention here is sometimes you do got to change frequencies. Let the people know, you know, announce it. You may need to go on and reactivate yourself, respot yourself there, and use the right term. Tell them your QSY into a new frequency. It's sometimes, you know, things happen. Some closing notes. Since August, I've made over 700 POTA contacts. Really had a great time. I've made more contacts since August than I did for the first 20 years of my license as a ham. So, you know, to me, that's just added a whole new excitement to the hobby. Again, I mentioned you schedule the activation ahead of time if you can. have fun. I can't stress that's enough. That's why we're doing this. I did share some of my awards down here that I'm getting, that I've hunted 137 parks. Down at the bottom right, you can see what states I've hunted. I've only activated Oregon so far, but maybe I can add a state or two this year to that too. Washington's going to be one of the first ones I might try for. And my FT 991 is doing a great job. I got it back from the shop. I did have to send it to the shop. It was getting intermittent, but it's been working solid ever since I got it back. And I got to share one other thing because Paul gave me permission. This past weekend, I finished my antenna on my truck. And so I've got a MFJ. These are 17 foot telescoping elements. I've put it up on a mast. Now my mast is a little bit different. I was looking for something I potentially could have up in the air without guy wires. And what I've come across are concrete floats. So these are 6-foot concrete float poles that I screw together. They fit right beautifully in this flagpole carrier. It's a little pivotal hitch, so I can walk it up and down. They're very light. I didn't really dare go above 24 foot is what I've got there. I've got 6 of those poles. And what was it, Saturday evening, dodging some of the rain, I managed to, my first contact in Utah seemed to work pretty good. I will end up guying it. I think this is okay for 9 or 10 mile an hour winds or less, but I'm setting up so I can guy at least 3 points, 2 to my truck and 1 kind of out behind the truck. So just wanted to share that. That's all I have, Paul.
Very nice, Ron. Thank you very much for sharing that wisdom and experience and what we can gain from that. 2 things I want to mention, and I don't know if I can share my screen, but I will put this instead of me trying to do that because I can't seem to unlock the screen for whatever reason. Where's the chat? Wait for it. So also we have another fellow in the local area who writes for the Roads, the Dallas Club, and Mike, WA7SKG. He's actually the 7th area coordinator for POTA. He tried to make it to the meeting today, but he was teaching a class and was unable to attend, but wanted me to say hello to everybody. And if anybody has any general interest beyond what Ron shared today, he's happy to answer questions as well.
I have a quick question.
The other thing I wanted to, that was point number 1. Point number 2 is I think we're going to do it again as soon as the weather gets warmer, but everybody really enjoyed our picnic in POTA last August. And that's where we did 2 of our favorite things, operate radios and eat cheeseburgers. So we're going to probably try to do that again in 2023. And I hope you all can make it. I don't have a date yet, but it'll most likely be after field day because that's a big lift anyway. So I'll just pause for a minute to see if anybody has any questions for Ron before we move on.
Yeah, Ted had one.
Yeah, I've noticed that the average of POTA activators don't do as much LOTW as I have experienced in the past with digital operators. And I'm curious, is that a decrease in interest in LOTW, or is that a POTA thing?
I suspect because you're already doing a lot of work to log everybody and get them uploaded. I suspect it's just the activators not taking the time to take that extra step. I know for me, I didn't do it at first because I wasn't familiar with LOTW. To be quite honest, I never used it. Until I started getting some people requesting it for me, I didn't take the time to do it. it's such a new and growing thing. I think there's a lack of awareness, and I think, we need to continue pushing the message out there to say, hey, it would be nice if you would put this up. It's not hard to do. Whether you go through QRZ or go straight to LOTW, since you're logging it into a database anyway, it only takes a minute or two.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question, Ted, and I rely on LOTW myself. Yes, Scott?
Well, I was just going to comment. I've noticed, Ron, that it's getting to the point now where the pileups for POTA stations are extending out like over an hour. Sometimes I was first of all, I remember I happened to be I wasn't on the air, but I was listening on Christmas Day, and there were just, I think, maybe two or three POTA stations on the air on 20 meters, like, mid-afternoon. And I mean, you couldn't get through if your life depended on it. It was just one guy had a pileup that went on for like 2 hours, and he finally just had to go QRT. I mean, it was it's just gotten to the point now where POTA is so popular, and there's so many hunters out there that you have to be very lucky, I think, now to after you work some of these people, unless you have a lot of time to sit around and wait for the pileups to. I mean, if you can't, trying to break through, and you may have a hard time. So anyway, yeah, POTA's really taken off, I think, in the last year. A lot, I've noticed.
So Anna had a question that she posted in the chat window. Didn't know if you wanted to bring it up or just put it out there for people to know.
No, I was just wondering, Cascadia is no longer a state park. And I know that the POTA requirements are that it has to at least be a state park. County and city parks don't count. So I would imagine that if the POTA guys find out about it, that Cascadia will be taken off the list because it's now the state gave it to Lynn County.
From what I read on that, I think the state still owns it, but they're letting it be managed by Lynn County.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
the
does it
signs all got
qualify?
changed. The signs all got changed, so it no longer says state park, it says Lynn County Park.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens with that one. I agree.
That's like getting a country deleted off the country list. You were lucky, Ron. You worked it already, and so did everybody else. So take credit for it. It's one of your PXCC, we'll call it. Little joke there.
And I was also going to
right.
mention, for people that would like a little bit more energetic POTA, there's also the OG POTA, which is soda, where you actually have to like hike to places. It's a little bit harder physically to make happen. And sometimes you can get a POTA and a soda, because most of the places around here that are soda peaks are in the middle of parks somewhere. So I used to be the Willamette Valley coordinator for the soda stuff. Obviously, up by my physique, you can see I haven't done very many soda activations in the recent past. I think POTA, part of the reason POTA has taken off and soda hasn't, is if you look at the age demographic of ham radio folks, going on a vigorous hike when you're 75 or 80 is probably not going to be in the cards for many in the US, at least.
Especially carrying.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, Ron. What modes are allowed for POTA?
It's pretty much any of the modes. CW is quite popular. FT8 I know is very popular. Yeah, the digital modes. So what you can't do is you can't work through a repeater. Now you can repeat through a satellite, but not through like 2-meter repeater.
Okay.
Yeah, all that is on the site. They've actually made it pretty easy.
Yeah.
Well, of course,
Very
the nice
cool.
thing about FT8 is logging is pretty much automatic.
Yes.
I got a question if
That's
any BLM areas are included in the parks list.
Only if it's a recognized park.
Got it.
So yeah, you have to go to the map and kind of figure out which ones are and which ones aren't.
Cool.
I'd like to know if any of them have full hookups so I can go take my camper.
Sure.
Some
Well,
do. Silver Springs would be one. Or Silver Springs Falls, I guess is the proper name of that.
Yep.
If they got a campground there, Paul, you know, in the park, they'll do. I was at Death Valley last, not this last Christmas, Christmas before, activated Death Valley, but there were a lot of, you know, campers there.
There's hookups at Annie Springs in Crater Lake on that side of the park. There's a whole big RV park on that side. So that's totally doable.
Nice. All right. Any other questions for Ron before we go ahead and start our business meeting? All
Thank
right.
you,
I'd like to
for your
thank Ron
time.
for putting this together at the last minute.
Thank you.
It was funny. I was sitting there emailing Mike, W7RAS, while we were eating lunch. Ron and I usually eat lunch together when we're in the office. And I'm sitting there, Mike says, yeah, sir, you probably missed it, but I'm not able to do a subject this coming meeting. And I'm like, oh, and I look up and there's Ron and I go, Ron. So I want to thank you for putting this together in a quick hurry.
Glad to do it.